Okay, thank you everyone for coming to our session today. Today, I'll be talking about developing emotionally friendly classrooms to nurture inclusion and motivation. First of all, I'm going to start by showing you guys the outline of our presentation so you guys can see what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about storytelling and the human brain. We're also going to talk about the benefits of storytelling, some story and story-based activities that will incorporate inclusion and cooperation. We'll also discuss some theoretical implications, and we'll do some final remarks at the end. So first of all, let's start by defining what inclusion is. I got this definition, which says basically that inclusion is a teaching model whereby students, regardless of their ability, learn together in one environment. That implies that there is fair treatment, equal opportunities, and students' diversity. I'm not sure how the context is there in Mexico, but I'd like to know how is inclusion being implemented in schools in Mexico. Can you guys share some ideas?
Well, regarding first the structure of the classrooms and the spaces where they can have better spaces for them, no? And also adapting things that sometimes we don't care, but there are many things that we can use just to plan our strategies in a different way so that they can also participate. In English, for example, if we have students with visual problems, then we need to adapt our context and also our activities, no? Because we are not going to have a reading for those students, but we can change the strategy for them to participate. And some things that teachers adapt, no?
I see. And that is one of the things that I was going to mention in relation to what you said, Celia. How often or how many opportunities did you as teachers have to learn more about inclusion and inclusive education? And how supported you feel about it? Because as you said, you had to adapt different activities. And how has it been going?
Well, first there was like, you saw that as a problem because you said, I'm not prepared, I'm not trained to work with different abilities, no, of our students. And that's why we need that training about also, even if they don't have something to adapt, we have different students in a classroom, and that's why we talk about learning styles, no, or multiple intelligences. So exactly. From the very beginning, we need to be prepared for that as teachers. And then yes. To be trained, no, to ask for support, as you mentioned.
Yes, one of the tenets about inclusive education is that all students learn together. But how are we going to get that if we don't have the assistance and support that is necessary? And how we're going to be able to do that first, right? So the idea is also, first off, to start focusing on abilities and what our students can do, and gear and customize those activities to make them so that our students can be focused on their abilities. We also have to be connecting with those individual learning styles, as Celia mentioned, honoring also those needs of our students equally, not just the ones that are more prominent, and valuing other cultures and perspectives, which is something that a homogeneous class, I think, is something that probably was something we had to work differently, because not everyone is the same and not every student learns in the same way. So we have to adapt those types of ideas that we had, preconceived notions that there for a long time, I would say, and adapt our learning and teaching styles. So today I'll also like to share with you what happens when we tell stories and what happens with our brain.
Excuse me,
And
I'm
how,
sorry.
yes,
I'm sorry,
yes.
before you move on to this next step, I was listening and I was wondering, how do you do this when talking about sign language? My sister, who works for public school, she said that uh, her class has been well, one child has been adapted to to her classes, and this student is a little girl. I think she's 12, 11 or 12 or something, and it's been so hard for her. Talking about inclusive education, and how to do this, right? When should we accept somebody like this, or we have no choice in the near future? We are not prepared to teach somebody who cannot speak through the sign language. She's learning sign language. Would it be possible also in the language teaching?
That is a very good question, Mario. I think I'm not sure how the policy is in Mexico, but in Argentina, students have the right to be included. It's part of the educational system, and it's their job to make sure every kid is included. And they are supposedly going to do so by supporting teachers. But you know how the bureaucracy works, as it's not always what is being said, right? Um, but a great thing about it, and I've been using that with my students in relation to sign language and English, there are some songs that come with sign language in the American language in this case, but it's a way also to show and have your students incorporate sign language as part of the curriculum to learn something about it. Of course, communication with a student that is learning that only communicates through sign language can be a very challenging task. But I also think it's a great opportunity for the whole class to learn sign language and experience it and go, one step at a time, but to do it. In our schools in Argentina, yes.
Sorry, now that you mention it, my sister said that she's been learning sign language, and she said that even her other students, who are almost everybody, they were excited also to learn a little bit of sign language. So
Exactly.
that is really nice to have.
It's a learning
well, she has a
opportunity.
preparation and
Exactly.
she has the skills to do it, but that's wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Yes, another thing that is also great is, like, for example, in our schools, like the national anthem is also sung in sign language. So students get to learn and understand as they sing the Argentinian anthem.
So we have to move on adapting, right? Adapting theirs.
Exactly. That is the goal. And in my case, today, I'm going to show you one way or one approach. And this one is by storytelling. But depending on the students' different abilities, that can be adapted, right? So I was going to mention the mirroring aspect of storytelling. And this is a great thing because as you're sharing your story, we were able to experience that same brain activity that you had as you share your sister's story. Another thing about storytelling is that it activates the same part of the brain to turn that story into your own. So we're looking at ways in which we can relate to the story that is being shared. Another important thing about storytelling is that it increases the level of dopamine, and we have the ability to remember those events easily, which you guys will do it today. And the other aspect about storytelling is that it also helps us activate our cortex area, in which if we have a well-told story, we are going to engage in many different ways. So what are the benefits of storytelling? If we have our students be part of this storytelling experience, they will develop peer-to-peer social skills, and that will also allow them to support each other and share in a more relaxed way. They'll also be able to activate active play and creativity because they are more likely to relate and create their own versions of a story once they hear one that they can relate. It also is a great way to reduce stress and anxiety because it will focus on students' understanding of content versus structure and grammatical structures. So that is one way to do it. For this next activity, I would need your guys' help. Can you see the text? Can you read it? Is it good? Is it clear? So?
It's okay
Yes.
with me. It's okay with me.
It's okay with you? All right.
Yes.
So I would need a narrator. I would need a teacher and a girl. So I would need 3 volunteers.
I'll be
Okay,
one.
Mario, you'll be
Yes.
one. You'll be the narrator. Okay.
Yeah, I want to be participating
Another
because
one.
shortly I have to go. I have another
Okay,
class. So, but
that's
I
fine.
want to
You can.
participate as soon as
Okay,
I mean as much as possible.
great. So you'll be the narrator. Celia, can you be the teacher?
Who's the teacher? Isabel or who's the teacher?
Yes, that's the teacher. Isabel, Miss
Miss
Isabel.
Isabel. Okay. Mhm.
Yes. Ismael, can I have the honor to have your participation?
Yes, no problem.
Okay, so you can be Marco. And, oh, wait, we need another person. Okay, I'll be Guadalupe. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
So should I start?
Yes,
I'm the
please.
narrator. I start with it is Guadalupe's first day, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we are different, but we are still very special. It is Guadalupe's first day at school. She's new at school. She's in fourth grade. Her parents are going to school with her. She says hi to her teacher, Miss Isabel. Guadalupe is very shy, especially when she reads out loud. The teacher introduces Guadalupe to the test to the rest of the class. Guadalupe sits next to one. It is time to read, and Guadalupe reads, it is a nice day.
Dear Guadalupe, can you read that again?
Guadalupe says,
It is a nice day.
Good try.
says Miss Isabel. Miss Isabel says,
Marco, remember that people feel sad when they are nervous and others make fun of them. I'm glad you are listening and stopped bluffing.
Guadalupe is uncomfortable. Juan asks,
Why is Guadalupe saying bay instead of day?
Sometimes some students get the letters B and D confused.
says Miss Isabel, and Guadalupe says,
I normally get very nervous when I read because I get them mixed up. I'm sorry, Miss Isabel.
It's okay, Guadalupe. We all get nervous about things we have a hard time with. I get nervous when I have to give a speech in front of a lot of people. Does anyone else want to share the kind of things that make them nervous? Juanita, go ahead.
Thank you, Miss Isa. My hands get sweaty when I have to take a math test.
Exactly. Our bodies react when our moods or emotions change.
the bell rings. It's time for recess. I'm sorry. Students go out and Miss Isabel talks to Guadalupe.
Do you always have letters mixed up?
Yes,
Miss
Miss.
Isabel.
I will
Yes,
call
Miss.
Replies Guadalupe.
I will call your parents.
Miss Isabel talks to Guadalupe's parents and they agree to have Guadalupe's tested for dyslexia. The following week, Miss Isabel decides to tell her class about dyslexia. She knows she in different directions. She asks students to bring a small mirror. Miss Isabel says,
we're going to have an experiment today. Look at the poster and see that the letters are not in the right direction. Now, what happens when you have a mirror to help you transform that letter into an alphabet letter? Find the right position of the mirror and see the magic. You can now understand that people with dyslexia sometimes don't have that magical mirror to transform the letters. This is Guadalupe's case. We understand now how she feels when she's reading. She has a special power. She learns in a different way. She has to be able to read without the magical mirror. So when she reads and tries, I want us to be her magical mirrors.
instantly, Juan said, Juan.
Juan? Who's Juan?
Okay,
We can
read it.
clap and cheer up and cheer her up.
And Guadalupe smiles. She feels supported, and for the first time in her life, she's not as nervous to read in front of her class.
Yay! Great.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your help. All right. So
We try. We did our
ideas?
best.
Oh, that's awesome. So tell me, what ideas come to your mind, and what do you think about the story? What are the things that you think, that
It's
caught your
really nice
attention?
the way the teacher to help the student not to feel bad whenever they have a mistake. In this case, it's dyslexia. In other cases, maybe lack of knowledge. In other cases, maybe big mistakes, or in this other case, a neurological problem.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Mario. Any other things you'd like to point out, or you'd like to share about your impressions?
Well, first, I felt, the pressure maybe that the students feel when they are reading in front, of their classmates in their case. Because you are trying to follow the lines when it's your turn, and then to do it the best, that you can. That can be one. Then in the context, the way that the teacher solved the problem, maybe in the classroom with the students. And then she also realized that it was important to talk to the parents, because sometimes we cannot solve all the things as teachers in the classroom. We need help of professional people, So that helps a lot, to make that combination, and also to understand that we can help, but there are things that we also need to ask for help.
Very good. Thank you for sharing, Celia. Any other person that'd like to share? You can comment on the chat. If you're a little shy to speak, you can just comment on the chat. Okay. All right. So yes, there are so many different layers that we can bring up here in the discussion. I would like to just mention a couple of structural ideas in relation to how we can incorporate this into our English classes, but how we can also make it an open discussion. Okay. So some ideas. So based on the story, we can use some inferential questions like how does a teacher feel about her students? You know, we know how important it is for our students to feel accepted, valued, and we have that power to turn that student into a super student. What makes this student special? Not maybe different, but special, because she has a special power. She has to do different things differently, right? Another way to do it is you can use integrated activities. For example, have students to listen to their feelings, record their reactions and comments, interview their classmates about the story, okay? Activities for retelling could be retell the story from the student's perspective, from the teacher's perspective. They can write captions for different sequences, okay? These are some examples that you can use with your students. Like, for example, how does the teacher feel about Marco's attitude? You can type it, you can record it, students can record their reactions. So you have a lot on what they feel. And also you can do it as, you know, start the activity and their impressions, but as you go in class or as you develop this idea or you continue with the story, there can be many more ideas to be added, right? You could also use illustrations. You can have students draw their own version or how they perceive or how they imagine the classroom or the different sequences of the story. They can also record the captions for their story. You can also do some kinesthetic activities like the one I have here. Can I have Mario? Can you read number 7? The idea of this kinesthetic activity is for one person to read the caption and for a student to either take a picture or act it out, you know, and put themselves in the character's shoes.
Okay, it says number 7, right? Is this
Yes.
is this a D or a B? I'm confused.
Can you see my face? Okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
I saw it.
every student can act it out differently, you know. They can do it like this, you know, and you see that how that sometimes for students that are more like they use their kinesthetic style, they can learn by doing, you see. There is the other one, number 8. Celia, can you read number 8?
Oh, I lost you guys.
I don't have my glasses, but let me see. Marco loves.
Laughs at me.
I'm sad. Sorry.
My teacher
And you
helps
can-
me. I feel better.
My classmates.
My classmates understand my situation. I'm not so nervous when I read. Thank you.
Can you see the sequence of thank you so much? So can you see the teachers and how you see the sequence and how we can express and with our facial and, you know, body language, express those types of emotion? This is a great way to do it with your students, taking pictures or, you know, in this case, the platform has a picture tool, but you can do it in different ways. Now, we share about students with abilities. How would you or how do you react in these types of situations? If you had the opportunity to have a student with a special need, how did you react? The first reaction.
Well, I am Amanda, not
Hi,
Ismael Guerrero.
Amanda.
Hi.
Hi,
Well,
Amanda.
when we notice that our students have some difficulties, well, first of all we have to identify what's the problem, and later talk to their parents, because they need a special and professional help. So this and try to help them, and the other students and need to understand that sometimes we are different and we don't have the same abilities, but we are, in this case, when some students needed help but this is not important, because the important is that all the students can learn at their own rhythm.
Yes, definitely. That is one of the great ways in which we can support them and make sure that we don't leave them. And then sometimes we are the first people to notice that the student has a situation or something, you know. Parents, sometimes they don't realize. So when we notice, one of the great things about the teacher is she saw what something was going on, she called the parents, like, and she was able to get help, you know, with the students. So I have just a short, oh, I don't think it's gonna play. What's going on? I had a brain break. Okay, it's fine. We can continue. For whatever reason, it's not
Well, I saw the inhale,
playing.
exhale.
All
So yeah,
right.
take a deep breath, and then
Exactly.
relax.
Take a deep breath, open your hands, and put it all together. Okay, I'd like to share a video about a class that was adapted, and I'd like for you to tell me what you think, okay?
Basketball theme going with today's Get Uplifted. Most of us have probably seen a lot of shots made by in basketball games over the past couple of weeks, but there was one shot that we and the person taking it didn't see. Jules Hall-Glenn is an 11th grader in Michigan and a member of her school's basketball team, and she recently made a free throw in a game, something that most of us would probably take for granted, but not Jules, because she is blind. Since Jules cannot see, she has some help from her friend Allie, and the two have known each other since middle school and have been inseparable on and off the court. And thanks to Allie's help, Jules is able to play basketball despite her vision impairment, showing that teamwork truly can make the dream work.
She's my eyes on the court because I don't have my cane, so I have to put my trust in her to make sure she doesn't let me get hit by balls, and she guides me in the right direction.
I had never met anyone who was blind before, so I knew nothing. She put a lot of trust into me, and it was a lot of trial and error, but we have come very, very far.
Okay, suffice to say, we all need a friend like Allie and Jules. We need that.
And what are the great things about these?
So tell me, guys, what do you think? Have you ever thought that a blind child would be able to play basketball? And how do you think a teacher, you know, who is not ready for that would be doing it? Any ideas to share? You're still thinking.
I would say the role of the friend was very important, because there was some motivation behind. So like they decided, okay, how could we do it? So I think that is amazing, that there was this link between, okay, I can see, but you can play, so I will show you how you could do it. So I was amazed by the video. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, you're very welcome. I really like the video because it was a great way to show us, and the story too, how when we are so shocked and afraid about, oh my God, what am I going to do? We all have the same feeling. But the great thing about it is that how we can transform this situation into a learning opportunity. It was a learning opportunity for the student. It was a learning opportunity for the rest of the class and the teacher too. Yes, go ahead, Lucia.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I had watched this video, and it's a really good video, and I just wanted to comment on something. I attended last year a workshop or a kind of webinar. It was a webinar, and a blind student talked to all of us teachers and other students from the program. And he told us something very important that you are mentioning here. And he said, the only thing that we need is the teacher asking, how can I help you? what can I do?
Exactly.
It's so simple. I mean, you don't need to go to a course or take a course on how to teach blind people. Just ask us what you need. That's it. We just need your disposition. Just that. It's as simple as that. And that was really like, it really called my attention, because you're always thinking, how can I teach English? How can I teach somebody who's blind? How can I teach a deaf student how to dance? How can I, if we have them in classes, how can I help them feel and do the things that everybody does? Because that is inclusion, you know, to know how to do that. So when I heard that from that student, I mean, from this student in this webinar, I was like, okay, I mean, I need to relax and just, of course, we need to study some things, yes? But the idea is to show this attitude. I'm okay with you, but how can I help? What can I do? Yes,
Exactly.
just that. I wanted to comment on that.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Lucia. Thank you so much. I had the opportunity to do this presentation in Argentina at an Argentinian conference, and there was a blind student that she's doing the teacher training program. She was in the last years of her teacher training course, and she came up and she said, you know what? I'm glad you guys are talking about it, because sometimes people really don't want to talk about it. And it's like, she felt so identified. Go ahead, Maria Elena. I think your microphone is on mute.
Sorry.
There you go.
I have been teaching for many, many years. And I remember that I once had a blind student who used to come to classes with his dog, a very trained dog, very, very cute one. And I was young. I think I was just developing my skills as a teacher. And then suddenly a blind student in class. To be honest, I don't know. I don't remember what I did, but he never abandoned the course. And once he told he asked me permission to bring somebody else, to bring his wife to class, because he said that she could help him. And I was like, of course, yes. And guess the big surprise is that his wife was blind as well.
Too.
So they were a couple, both were young, both blind, and she also had a dog. So I had 22 students, 2 blind people, and 2 dogs in a classroom. And whenever we had a teamwork and they had to run to the blackboard to write something in Teams, the dogs were crazy because they saw people running in the classroom and they were just lost. But I'm talking about 20 years ago, and I really, when nobody talked about inclusion, when the physical conditions were not adapted for blind people, for handicapped people, for no one. I mean, so I think that nowadays we talk. We have talks like yours. We have people specializing in dyslexia and all that stuff, but I would have no idea on how to do it. As a student, I have helped blind people by reading books for them before there were audiobooks.
Right.
So technology has developed a lot and it's helping us to deal with these problems. But 20 years ago, it was even worse.
Yes, and there are so many things we can say about it, right? Thank you, Maria Elena. I'm so happy you shared. And this is a great thing about stories, that we connect, you see? That we can connect. And then we have some sort of experience about it and we've done something, and that's great. And that's another thing I wanted to share with you, is that the common misconceptions about teachers. Teachers should know everything. Well, we don't. And this is okay. You know, it is okay not to know everything. It is okay to, the most important thing, as one of the other teachers mentioned, to have a good attitude, to be open. And you were open to it too, Maria, to develop a strategy which can be very good when we incorporate and ask what the other students needs. Pair work can be a great thing, because if a student is helping another student and they are learning about the student's disability, that can be something good, because they can connect, as you saw in the basketball situation. Okay, teaching and learning a student a new way to play a sport or game, in this case, could be also another skill, another language, okay? And to have an action plan. But the action plan can always have, you know, errors. It's a trial and error process, because even dyslexia or any other condition is not the same. Asperger, autism, they have so many different variables and different ways. You have to learn what your student needs with your students, okay? And that's one of the things that I wanted to leave you guys with today. And then I also wanted to mention, how can storytelling be this way in which, in a relaxed way, you can bring up those discussions to the class, and you can be nurturing your students, developing empathy, because basically nobody's on the spot in a story, in the fictional story, nobody's on the spot. So you can bring up those discussions safely there. We don't have to have all the answers for everything. We can also discover that with our students. We can hold our students' hand and discover those different realities together and with your class. The teacher's attitude can definitely change the class dynamics. The teacher's reaction before, during, and after the situation is very important. And the other thing that I also wanted to say is that it's so important when we change our attitude, and how we can turn that situation that can be shocking, scaring, you know, whatever you want to call it, into a learning opportunity. So embracing diversity is that journey that you can take with your students. So what happens with storytelling and educational, educational learning objectives? Well, we have different ways in which we can incorporate the discussion. But basically, by having your students analyze different parts of the story, they can first work on the meaning, and then incorporate the new expressions, tell their own versions of the story, evaluate and assess what part of the story they can change or modify. And so they will be actively discussing a situation, you know, in this case, a special needs student or whatever, and at the same time learning English. Okay, so that's a combination, you know, the perfect combination. So what can we also do with storytelling? Well, developing lifelong learning and lifelong lessons could be great for our students, because stories help spark action, transmit values, inspire students, foster collaboration, share knowledge, and protect the future. So keeping that in mind, I'm sure that you now are more aware of what stories can do to you and your class. So what happens when you develop a curriculum that is story-based? Well, you have the ability to activate different parts of the brain. You can activate the emotional connections and personalized connections with the premotor area. When your students read stories and develop those skills, they activate the frontal cortex. When they have to read or speak or retell the stories, they activate Broca's area. When they also do different reading comprehension activities, they activate Wernicke's area. When they have to do these kinesthetic skills that we did today, these kinesthetic activities, they develop the motor novelty and learning movement area of our brain. When we present some types of different visuals, they will be activating the processing area. So what are the theoretical implications that I also wanted to discuss in our meeting today? These are related to CD8, which is critical discourse analysis. And basically, when we analyze discourse, we analyze what the social practices are, or how discourse is embedded and in our social practices, and how we can either reproduce the same social practices, meaning we don't talk about inclusion, we just ignore it, we just leave it aside in this particular case, or we can create discourse or stories in this case that can bring up those discussions, and we can transform our stories, our students, our reality by means of discourse, in this case, in the form of a story. So my question for you would be, what kind of stories do you want to share with your students? And what kind of change do you want to make in your class? These are questions that, maybe I would like to leave you with. So when you go to your classroom next time, you will be more than refreshed, and, maybe you'll know what you want to do. Well, our series in our Storyscape was the one that was just released, features different ways in which you can incorporate stories into your classes. We have different stories that, talk about mourning a loved one, frustration, supporting people, and there are so many different ways in which we can support inclusion. I like to leave you with one of my favorite inspirational people, who is Nelson Mandela. He says that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. So I do hope that you guys are inspired to continue doing so, and just to become a lifelong learning, so you can support your students, understand their struggles, and make stories part of your curriculum so you can change the world. And possibly this will be the first step to doing it. If you'd like to listen more and read more stories about it, I'd like to invite you to scan our code, learn more about our Storyscape. We are also transitioning to a great way to inclusive education, because our website and our platform is under a process of making our materials accessible to different types of learning styles and students with different disabilities. So I'm so happy we are doing that, because it reflects what we need right now, right? Which are more inclusive classrooms. And I hope, we all get that we change that in our classroom realities. So thank you so much. I'll be sharing the link in the chat. I'm not sure if you have any questions before we finish.
Well, Mike, just to say thank you. And I was going to say, I feel like at home, because we just came back from ANUPI Cancun, and now looking at a few familiar faces, I feel at home. So, and that's why I made an effort to just stay here. I have a class in a few minutes. So thank you very much for the contents you just show us. Thank you very much. And hello, everybody. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Thank you, Lorena. And during our conference, there were two presentations for the first time dealing with people with this sort of problems that we were not aware in the past. So I'm glad that we're becoming aware that as teachers, we need to show empathy, but at the same time to look for sources that can help us in helping these students with these handicaps, or I don't know if that's the right word, because this is something that is becoming, in the past, I suppose, families tended to have these kids at home. And nowadays, this is more open. So I know it's difficult. For example, for young people, they will have to learn how to deal with this sort of students in the real classes, especially in public schools. So I'm very happy that you brought this issue to our first webinar ending the year. And I hope that people attending the webinar for coming, and I thought this was a very good presentation. So thank you, Lorena. We hope that you will be able to join us in the near future.
I will, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I love sharing with you everything, and thank you so much for your active participation, because I think that made this for a great webinar, because we need your input, your feedback, and it was an open conversation. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon, guys. I will be, let me stop the share. Let me take a picture before we go. Would you like to turn on your cameras? I'll stop the recording. There we go.